points. I thought Cager was really good, and Bales came in. And everybody knows Bales is a really cerebral.
I do. Hello, Sylvan Zoom. Hello, Sylvan Zoom. Hello, Marty. Hello, Eric.
Eric stepped away real quick.
Thank you, Velma.
You're
Appreciate that. I'm just saying hi to people.
Okay, you can't see me, right? I have no picture.
No picture.
I joined with video, but okay, I'm gonna go out and come back in again really quick. Hang on. Still nothing, huh? Okay, let me try on my iPad. Darn.
Did you shut yourself out of the other one, Jen? Because if you didn't shut yourself out, sometimes it won't let you.
Okay, I guess I have to go iPad on the tiny screen. So if you see me squinting, that's why. Old lady eyeballs. Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have everyone? 1, 2, 3. Is Christine here? Hi, Christine. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Me. Okay. Very good. Welcome, everybody. Let me pull out my agenda.
Hey,
Put it up electronically in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and call. Boy, I feel a little discombobulated. Hang on a second. Regular board meeting. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I'll start with our board president announcement. In accordance with board policy, this announcement is to advise all attendees that tonight's board meeting is being recorded. Any persons wishing to address the board on any agenda or non-agendized item must fill out a speaker card, and the information for that is in the notes for the meeting. You send that to Velma Silva. I'd like to report out of closed session that direction was given to staff regarding all matters. And at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
so moved.
Moved by Mr. Raw,
Second.
second by Miss Harvey. Roll call, please. Oh, you're muted, Velma.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Hi.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa,
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. At this time, can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sure, I'm looking for the time when we have students do that again, aren't you?
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead with our first item on the agenda, which is the student discipline action item.
Make a motion to approve an amended recommendation from the administrative hearing panel.
Recommendation has been made by Mr. Raw. Looking for a second.
Second.
Second was made by Ms. Harvey. I hear Ms. Harvey and see Mrs. Tolkatson. Made by Ms. Harvey. Roll call, please.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
No.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our communications portion of the agenda. At this time, I think, Mr. Frederickson, do you have some written communication?
Yeah, I have some exciting news to report tonight. We're excited that we were communicated with by the Department of Education, California Department of Education, announcing that one of our schools is being recognized as one of the California Distinguished Schools for this year. And that's Daniel Savage School. And the California Distinguished School Award they alternate years. This year, they're recognizing middle schools and high schools together. And it's based upon the data that's collected on closing the achievement gap for our students and exceptional student performance. So this was the only school in our county that was selected this year. So we were invited last week to go to the Stanislaus County Office of Education, and we were presented with a certificate for the school. So here's our certificate, if you can see that. Way to go. And a medallion there. So we'll be working with our staff to recognize them, but we did have one representative, Kathy Friedman, one of the teachers, joined Board President Miyakawa and Mrs. Granger on being presented there. And it was actually in person. So that was just one of the highlights, was just meeting people in person and kind of coming back to normal a little bit. And what a way to come back to being normal, and one of your schools being recognized as a California Distinguished School. So congratulations to Savage for their work on that, and we'll be working with their site principal and their staff to do further recognition for them. But we certainly want to get out in front of that and just give them a kudos.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Their truckload of medallions should be arriving soon, right? I think
Yes. Yeah.
everyone involved at that school site deserves it. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead with public participation. At this time, Velma, do we have any public participation?
We do not have any at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll go into the next section, which is information and discussion. And we'll turn the time over to Superintendent Frederickson for an update on our reopening of schools.
Okay, which has been a lot of our topic throughout the year. Just a great way to continue moving forward this last week. We've moved forward with combining our cohort groups, our hybrid in-person learning students in grades 4 through 8. And again, we've been trying to move forward, provide the best options for our students given the circumstances. Those that have chosen to stay with distance learning, provide a quality program in distance learning, and be able to start to transition these kids back to in-person. And again, what allowed us to be able to make that change was the change in guidance from the California Department of Public health, reducing that minimum from 4 feet to 3 feet. Now, it's only a foot, but it took a great deal of strategizing and looking at furniture and ways to ensure that our students would maintain that, at least that minimum. Couple of grade levels in order to combine those cohorts. They are at the 3 feet mark. We actually went to the classrooms, did a couple of demo rooms to see what it looked like before we ever made that decision. And I appreciate the just the work with our labor partners in this thing. They want those kids back too. And so I want to just acknowledge the work they did, and to be, and again, we wanted to do as quickly as we could because the weeks are ticking by, and we still have 6 weeks left, and we wanted to make sure we were able to get that going. And it took a lot of cooperation and collaboration to make that happen. So just really happy to see those kids back on Monday in those classrooms, and again, sticking with the plan that we've had since the beginning with our reopening plan. And now, that's this year. So what about next year? That's why I get a lot of questions from families. Okay, what are you going to do about this year, wrapping it up, but what about next year? And starting to work with our leadership team, starting to strategize for next year. What we're looking at, we got to be, one, make sure we're proactive in what we're doing, and also realistic. Plan kind of for the worst case scenario, so that we aren't caught off guard. So right now, the work we're doing is revolving, what if we're still faced with the same restrictions? What if we still have the 3 feet and the masks requirements and the 6 feet for eating? I think it's safe for us to start strategizing with that, but the intent would be to have all our students back and for in-person learning. And what does it take to have 3 feet minimums and enough room for social distancing for eating? And that's what I'm working with the leadership team on now, looking at outside spaces, other ways with scheduling that we can try to make that happen. And so, a lot of that support could come from our COVID funds that we've been provided with. And I'll share with the board soon what our strategy looks like at the May meeting. And so that's our task with our leadership right now. I appreciate the work they're already doing, trying to wrap up this year. But if we need to make some ordering to be ready for that, we've got to get on it in May for some of that. We still have not received any guidance on providing a distance learning program. That expires with the governor's executive order. So what I can't say is that we can guarantee a distance learning program as it was this year, because again, we've not been given any guidance on that yet, which makes it tough in planning. And I think I appreciate the advocacy with our ledge action weeks that we've had. I know that's been communicated to some of our legislators about, you guys, we really need guidance now, because we're planning, we start in August. I think some people think about, oh, it's after Labor Day. No, we need to be ready to start in August, and knowing what that guidance will be for distance learning will be crucial. But right now, our focus, we want to get all our kids back for in-person learning. That is our goal. And how can we do that with some of the restrictions if they're still there? The other thing I want to just give a quick plug on, we've also been working, Mrs. Granger's been working with the principals and the committee for 8th grade promotion. I appreciate all the work they've been doing with that. There's guidance that's been sent out by the state several weeks ago about public gatherings and so on. It's still pretty tight trying to do that. We're moving forward with a drive-through promotion, and we're looking at doing that on Thursday, May 27th from 4 to 7 p.m. And communication will be going out to our families tomorrow, letting them know about that. We feel really good about the plans and organization that the staff has been doing to make that as meaningful as possible and still meet the requirements for social distancing and public gatherings. And that's all I have for my report.
Great. Thank you very much. Were there any questions by the board with any of that? Okay, very good. George and I went out and visited a few sites the other day, and it was a little surreal. I mean, it was great. It was great to see the kids on campus again. It was a little surreal to see the setup of the classrooms, but it was fun to see how the kids had individualized their little pods, and they had little things hanging. You could tell which ones were the girls and which ones. And the flow, we saw the flow, a couple of times we had some passing periods. So we got to see the flow of traffic, and the sites have done a great job to get these kids back on campus and back up to speed. So thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead with 10B, our COVID one-time funds update.
Good evening, that's me. And I will go ahead and share my screen to bring up the reports. Okay, and so there's two attachments. The first one, as we're now used to seeing, are color-coded COVID one-time funds. I don't have any significant updates to this time. We haven't had any major changes. I do want to point out that we just got a good update that for the blue dollars here, the in-person instruction and ELO expanded learning opportunity grants, the two most recent state grants that are just over 7 million. We're expecting that just over 50% cash deposit to be coming in next week. So we're looking at about 3.6 million. So that's definitely good news in terms of having the cash to get us started as we look at working on that ELO plan that we've been discussing and continue to put plans into place for that and many of these COVID funds. And then the other attachment that you'll see is the usual now that I've started to update with the detailed listing of what's actually been spent and or encumbered and processed with POs and such. And so I've added to it, and we're at a total of 914,956. And then you see the 30 million that we've been talking about of the overall COVID funding, leaving us at just over the 29 million. And again, as we've been discussing with these funds, as we work on primarily starting with the ELO grant plan and putting all the actions and steps that we'll be taking to flesh out the details of what goes to that funding and then what goes into the remainder of the rest of the COVID funds. We'll be fleshing out exactly from this list what's going to go into which one of those pots, but this just gives you an overall where we're at with that total spending and what's remaining. So I'm happy to take any questions the board may have.
Okay. Looking for questions from any board members. Just scrolling through, sorry. I don't see any. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you very much, Lizette.
Thank you.
We'll go on to our 2020-21 governance goal update.
Okay, can I have our team put that up there for me, display it? Thank you. Again, first of all, I just want to just express my appreciation to the board for working with me this year on establishing the governance goals. What's so important is such an unusual year implementing both a distance learning and an in-person model and just dealing with the crisis, and to be able to align our goals with our learning continuity plan and not have separate goals and initiatives, really streamlining. And it's really, I think that continuity has made a difference. So could you try again? I had Siri wanting to respond to me on my watch. Must have said something she liked. Maybe she can give my report.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can?
Technology. Okay. Anyway, the first on goal 1 is looking at implementing a robust distance learning platform. And some of the metrics we looked at was participation. And in the pink, we've established, I always like leaving a benchmark so you can see where we were in January. And in spring, it gives you an idea. Again, we've added grades 4 through 8 because they actually had some choices of in-person and distance learning. But that shows you the participation level of our distance learning group. It did go down some for the 3rd trimester in our grades as more parents are feeling more comfortable having their children come back to in-person learning. Remember, we gave them an option in the 3rd trimester, they could change their choice. And so, for example, in January, our K was at 34% on distance learning, and then it switched to 30. What that shows me is a couple things. One, some families felt comfortable coming back to school with in-person, but others were feeling, hey, I'm going to stick with this. And it means it was a viable option for them. And I'd like to feel that it was because the work that our staff has been doing in providing a quality distance learning program for those students. As you look at the other grades, maybe a higher percentage on distance learning, probably because we weren't at 5 days a week at that point or 4 days a week at that point. So that could have some influence on that. Again, we don't have all the data for that. Okay, the next slide. Let's go on, I think, to the next pink section. Let's just get to the next, keep going down. Okay, this is goal number 2, and our action steps there was a model will be developed to measure student progress via distance learning and a hybrid model measuring student attendance and engagement. And what this shows in spring, and this has been challenging because, as you know, attendance is kept for distance learning by the system that was set up for engagement and so on. And this attendance is blended with both distance learning and in-person learning. So I think the overall picture of what we're seeing is, even in the midst of all of this, we have still schools with attendance of 94% and above, which is outstanding. I think that's a good indicator that whatever option we were providing, whether it was in distance learning or in person, students were still engaged in that. So what I would be interested in taking a look at later is, how does that compare to our regular attendance rates? I would imagine it's pretty close to that, usually 95, 96%, maybe even a little higher. But even this in the mid 90s and above shows our kids were engaged and in attendance there. Now, under the engagement, what we did at this one, the board had already had access to that. Carrie Albert did an outstanding job giving that metric at the last board meeting. We included a copy of her presentation with that, but I think her measurement and her presentation last board meeting really gave a benchmark for that. Okay, let's go on to the next. Let's see. I want to get to the MobyMax. Go up a little bit more right here. Again, MobyMax again is measuring both math and language arts foundational reading, and I think this is the results from April. And the key thing, without digging deep into this, because we will be looking more at MobyMax, because that's what we're going to be using for end of the year state assessment in grades 3 through 8. So we'll be drilling deeper into the MobyMax data. The key thing that you're seeing here is this line, and the trajectory of the line is going up. And that, I just have to commend our staff. And just in the conversations I've had with the site principals this year, as I talked with them about their goals, is even though we were focusing primarily on culture this year, most of all principals still wanted to have a goal in there, a continuing for student learning. And this just shows some of the things they've shared with me, how staff have been doing intervention and targeted instruction. And even in the midst of all of this, you can see, we hear a lot about learning loss, and we'll be doing more assessment about that next fall and looking at MobyMax at the end of this spring. But what I'm seeing here is growth, and to what extent that compares to the past, we'll have to look more at that. But again, that was a good metric for measuring that. And then the next pink section, that is on continuity of learning. And again, that goes with, I believe it's goal number 3. Yeah, that's goal number 3. A local continuity plan will be implemented that supports learning for all students, mitigating learning loss and supporting students with unique needs and mental health and social emotional well-being. And again, what this shows here, what I've added was we talked about the OWL technology and moving forward with our hybrid model. That's one of the, probably about the 8th, 9th bullet down. We've implemented in-person learning. I just kind of gave a trajectory of the work that we've done, the stages, bringing our 4 or 5 students back on March 1st in cohorts, and then grade 6 on March 15th, and then our 7th and 8th grade on March 29th, and then our in-person cohorts combined on the 19th. And again, that was all part of this goal, was to have a continuity of program. And okay, next slide. This also includes a little more update on what we've been doing with our professional learning. You can see since we reported out in January, the February 1st grade level remote and blended learning from EduDuck Tape Mindset and the Ed Puzzle Saturday seminar in February, more choice boards on the 8th, and a Saturday seminar on the 13th, and onboarding for new teachers and new substitute teachers. So even in the midst of this, we've been able to continue from our Ed Services Department providing professional development. And then the other metric we measured was meals. And we want to give, just a big kudos to that department, Mike and his crew, for all that they've been doing this year. And I just think it's astounding when you look at the number of meals that has been provided and the amount has increased. I mean, that metric, when you look at 2021, 982,748 meals, the endeavor that department made to make that happen, and the need for families to have nutrition for their children. And I of all our metrics, I feel really proud of the work that our district has done with that work. Okay, then in goal number 4, and that is on safety, and our classroom environments and workspaces are physically safe, clean, and well organized. Again, all of the things that were in January, we've been maintaining. So I gave an update on these 4 bullets here. And one of the things are the desk shields, are the barriers. And that's an interesting one. I want to just give the board an update where we are with that. Even as we've increased bringing students back, we have maintained having shields on there. Now, there's debate about whether those are key elements in helping divert any kind of virus transmission. I think we're going to need to do some further analysis on those. A lot of it, the research is saying, is more of a visual. It makes it look like we're taking more safety measures, which we felt very committed to at the beginning of the year, but further research is starting to come out about that. And again, If it makes it safer, hey, I'm all for that. But there's a cost to that. And especially the classrooms that have 34 kids in them, in some of the 4 or 5 rooms, it's really, you're in the back of the room looking through those barriers. It impacts communication, sound, and just the overall, some of the primary classes have been using them all since November. And a couple of teachers let me have the opportunity to come to their room and peek through the back one and look all the way through. And it obstructs. But again, we made a commitment to our community and to our staff that we would do all we could to provide safety. But we will be doing some further analysis on that. And if it's determined through that we don't need that, then we may not do those for next year. But we want to make sure we go through the process. But I want the board to know in my update that that's part of our consideration with that. And then I talked a little bit about the change in the guidance from CDPH, and we have shifted to the 3 feet minimum when it's necessary. If it's not, we continue to expand the distance there. We only do that if it's in some places where it's necessary. And I think the districts continue to implement all the safety practices that were listed above, and they align with Sean Smith's report that he gave in January. And I want the board to know we're still in constant contact and frequent contact with the local public health department regarding any of our safety guidelines and anything that's new. And then Carrie Albert attends a monthly mitigation meeting where she keeps in contact there. So I feel, especially with goal number 4, we've been very diligent about sticking with safety. And I appreciate all the work that the staff has done with that. But that's my update on the governance goals.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frederickson. Are there any questions by the board regarding our governance goals? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next section. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I had a question for Mr. Frederickson. We purchased an awful lot of those screens. What are we going to do with those screens if we determine that they're not doing what we thought they were?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of that when you're trying to provide safety measures based upon what the current advice is. And really, we would probably put them in storage until we figured out what to do with them, if that's the road we take. Again, that's why we were provided with those emergency funds, was to purchase anything that we felt would enhance safety. We may end up with leftover masks and gloves. And, as they found out that surfaces were not the primary agent of, transferring the virus, it keeps shifting. And, so we'll just keep them in storage. Or maybe if we don't ever use them again, make a project out of them or something. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess it just concerns me because we have invested so much money in these things. And I think it just kind of is almost a media hype about which one's telling what about what. And so I worry a little bit about the fact that, that we're saying things maybe are not needed and they are, and maybe down the road they really were found to be needed. So I'm just a little worried that, we don't want to make it sound like we rushed out and did something that we shouldn't have done. I really think that personally at the height of the COVID, that any kind of protection that we could have given the students and the teachers was worth not being able to see through the screen real well. I mean, you kind of have to have the goods and the bads with things.
Yeah, I don't regret that we made that decision. We made a very good decision based upon the information we had at that time. And that's why they're still remaining up. So we don't want to be knee jerk in our decisions, because just because they're inconvenient. If they are truly a way to help prevent spread of a virus, then we're going to continue to follow what the safety guidance has with that. But I know from public health, they have now stated that those are not requirements. That was a choice by our district to be just extra cautious in providing those for our students. And again, remember, we were one of the first districts to bring back primary students 5 days a week, all day long. And so we had to be hyper vigilant about what we were doing for safety measures. And I think we made the right choice to have those there. And I think it's the right choice to have them up there right now. But again, we aren't going to just get rid of them. We're going to do some work and see, because they do cause a distraction and they, in the room, but we will do analysis whether we want to take them down or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead with the next item 10D, which is the first reading of a proposed board policy and administrative regulation updates. And just for a matter of information, this is Mrs. Talcott's first time, but when it says first reading, what this means, and I'm assuming, Dee Dee, you can explain it, but I'm assuming that all these policies that are listed will be included. But
yes.
we when it says first reading, what that means is we are given the policies and administrative regulations documents that if a law has changed that affects our policies in place, we have to go through and update our policies so that they are in compliance with the law. And so we're given the readings, and I'm sure Velma will let us know when we're going to be getting these policies. And then in our next board meeting is actually when we'll be discussing and asking questions. But go ahead, Dee Dee, why don't you introduce the law change? And
Thank you, Mrs. Miyakawa. That's exactly what partly I was going to say. So thank you for that. So normally you would now be given a binder from Velma Silva to do that. She's going to hand deliver. She's going to DoorDash your board policies to you. So which is lovely. Yes. Thank you, Velma, for all of that. This is the list presented to the board outlines the board policies, administrative regulations, and exhibits that will include proposed changes, additions, and deletions for the board to review in response to policies and procedures that are required for Title IX updates. The board policies and administrative regulations reflect the policies related to gender equity and sexual harassment reporting and investigations, as well as non-discrimination. This update will also include an update to our uniform complaint procedures and our form. A complaint under the Uniform Complaint Procedure is a written and signed statement that is something that someone can submit, which is an allegation of a violation of a federal or state law where they apply to certain educational programs. And we're charged as a school district to ensure compliance with applicable laws and all regulations. And as Mrs. Miyakawa beautifully described, when there's an update to the law, those need to be reflected. So Velma will share the revised copies with red and blue line changes. We're going to make a little color code key for everyone so everyone knows what the different pieces are. The hard copy, I think, of the documents will be most helpful for the board members to have. So at the May 11th meeting, there will be a second reading for the board to ask questions and request clarification. And then the plan is for at the June 1st meeting, the board will have their final review and move for adoption of any changes. I'd also like to thank Sharon Roddick, our retired Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, who took on finalizing the documents and the project with updates both from Gamut and from the law firm. We call them F3, but Fagan, Fullfrost, and Friedman and Fullfrost. And actually the attorney that we've worked with and has provided training to our district staff and some other pieces is also available to join us in that meeting should the board decide that they would like that. So, so this is just the list of all the things that are coming to you that will be DoorDashed to you as a board policy and AR binder.
Great, thank you. Just for a little matter of history, George, I think Christine, you've done this once, right, for the binder, but there was a time where like what, every 3 or 4 months we were getting given binders, like they felt like this thick, but they were, and we'd have to go and update a lot of our policies. So fortunately, I think we're mostly caught up with that and those days of those dreaded binders. Anyway, so we'll take care of that next time. Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson, for that update. We'll go ahead with the next item on our agenda, which is 10E, and that is our titled Sylvan Student Advisory Council. And I asked that this be put on the agenda following a request by one of us students in our district. He wrote in, let's see, it would be about a month and a half ago, March 2nd. And I'm gonna say Kevin, because that's how I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. I know there's a different spelling. So Kevin, please forgive me. I think he's in attendance tonight if I'm saying that wrong. But he wrote in and I just want to review a couple of the things that he requested in introduction to why I brought this forward to you tonight. He said, from the meetings I've observed, there's virtually no student voice involved in the decision-making process. And this was following a thank you for and an understanding of the difficulties we face this year. He said, the largest stakeholders in these decisions are the ones most absent in the conversation. We can and must change that. Concerned students, giving concerned students and let's see, I'm cutting and pasting. So giving them a platform for concerned students to express their opinions about the situation at school and to collaborate to develop potential solutions to ensure that we as a board are equipped with a direct voice of the district students. And he says, we want to help you make decisions that reflect the needs of students. The goal being that the board will be more informed and that the students will be more engaged. He just had a very well-written letter to us that month and a half ago. And so I reached out to him. This is actually something that I had kind of wondered about my first few years on the board. But when I kind of took a look around, it looked like it was mainly just high school districts that had that student representative to the board. And so I kind of dropped it and didn't really look into it further. And then when Kevin wrote in, I wrote back to him and asked him if he would like to submit some ideas. I would be happy to take a look at those and bring them to the board. And so he did. He wrote a 2-page detailed and thoughtful plan, kind of outlining a potential opportunity for a student advisory council and a student representative to the board. Since receiving his letter, I've spoken with Mr. Frederickson and both Kathy Friedman and Melanie Dean, who are both the leadership teachers at USTAC and Savage, to get their ideas and feedback on some of the things that he proposed in his letter. And in those conversations, we all, agreed that if this was done thoughtfully and intentionally, that this could really provide a valuable leadership and civic experience for students, as well as provide the board with valuable student perspectives. But before going any further with this, I did want to seek input from the board and permission to form a small committee of the leadership teachers and some students and myself to draft a plan to bring to the board for consideration. And that, would look similar or different to what he has proposed, but just a way that we can have more direct access to student voice and what that could look like. So I'm just looking at this time for permission to look into this a little further and have some conversations with the people that would actually be involved in the actual work of working with these students directly, and then they at that time could come up with something to present the board at a future date. So I'm looking for just input from the board and also maybe just poll the board to see if that's something that they would like us to look into further. Yes, Ms. Harvey.
I totally remember that letter. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is great. 100% behind you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harvey. Yeah, George.
Yeah, I had a question on the last agenda item, but my little yellow hand must not have made your iPad.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not. Sorry, George.
It's all right.
Sorry.
Yeah, I support you if you want to explore it. I don't have a concern with it. I know that if you create a committee, though, over time, sometimes it's a challenge to fill that committee. And I know that Lizette has trouble filling her bond committee and some of these others. And I think we have trouble filling the school board Mrs. Talcott's story, sometimes it's hard to get it once we get going. So keep that in
Right.
mind when you explore that, if there's a way to make sure that we can keep the committee full or however, it would be fine. As of on the last item, and Dee Dee can just bring it up whenever she talks again, that you brought up Sharon's name. I didn't know Sharon worked for us anymore. And so is she being independently contracted? Is she doing this pro bono, or is she just a lovely person helping out? That surprised me. I didn't know that.
I'm sorry to surprise you, Mr. Ross. So no, with Mrs. Roddick has come out of retirement and done some specialized HR work for us this season during COVID, and doing some of the things. And so no, she's just doing certain projects and things that are definitely in her wheelhouse and things that could be helpful to the district and to human resources. So and we're very grateful that she was. So yes, project-based work is what I would say.
Okay. All right.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Lindsay, go ahead.
Yes, well, I had the opportunity to talk to you about this,
Yeah.
but I wanted to share with the other board members, in my working with CSBA and with some of the programs, this usually, when there is a student board member, is usually a high school board member. Never have heard of many, I'm sure there are, but I have not heard of very many middle school, based on the fact of the lateness of most denies, et cetera, et cetera. My understanding of the committee is just the committee just to establish what your plan would be. It wouldn't be a long lasting committee, right? Once the teachers got the plan and got it, established at the sites, then they would be the ones that would be implementing the program through the leadership. Is that correct?
Correct. So the committee that I'm asking, this exploratory committee, is just to kind of to form this discussion and to formulate a plan as to whether we think a student advisory committee would be valuable, meaningful, and sustainable in our district, and what would that look like, and how would they be selected, and also if we would like to include a student representative to the board or not. What does this look like in our district, being an elementary district? So it's more, I didn't want to go to all the work and get anyone's hopes up if this wasn't the will of the board that we look into this further. So then the committee would actually just then submit a proposal to the board. Hey, this is what we think would be advantageous and for both students and the board. I mean, if this is done well and meaningfully and thoughtfully, this could be a great experience for both the students and ourselves. I mean, he's right there. We really look to hearing from our students, and if they're willing to serve on this kind of a committee, I think it's fantastic. So this is just seeking the will of the board that I look into this further with the leadership teachers and some of the students to see what could this look like in our district, and how is it sustainable? And then they would bring the plan and present it to the board, and we could decide whether we want to go ahead with the plan as they proposed or amend it. But it's just an exploratory committee that I didn't want to get ahead of myself, that cart before the horse thing.
Well, then, I support your going out with a committee to look at this and to study how we could get information from each of our sites and things like that. I'm not in support of a student on a board, because I think they're most of the information that has been brought down to me through CSBA as a delegate, that it's mostly high school students who are more mature, more able to get to and from the meetings. The meetings are often late and things like that. And so I would say that if it were something that came from like the leadership classes from each of the middle schools, I think that would be fantastic. It would be a great thing to have the projects at each of their sites, and have I don't know how they would establish each school site having their committee, but through leadership, it would be a wonderful program.
Okay, great. Well, and that's all things that we'll talk about, right? And how that would look in our district versus how they do it in a high school district. Thank you, Cindy. Ms. Talcott, anything you'd like to add? Or?
I think that I highly support it. I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm supportive of it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate Kevin who wrote that in and took the initiative on himself. I think that's fantastic. Anytime, our kids want to get out and lead, I'm all for it. So I will go ahead then and meet with some of our leadership teachers and get some students on this and we'll see what we can come back with. So thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on, we'll go to safety and facilities update and any board questions. I don't know if Lizette, if you have anything to front load or if you're just looking for questions.
I do have a couple of quick updates on this. So the first one is on our USAC modernization project. I am happy to report that we have received the DSA certification of completion. We received that on the 15th. So we've wrapped that process up with DSA. So I know that's very good news. And then I did a Friday update just this last week, but I wanted to just kind of recap and reference that in regards to the facility subcommittee meeting that we had. We had one, gosh, I guess that was just last week. We had lots of great discussions. To recap a few of those things, we discussed the capital outlay plan as a follow-up to our last board meeting in the interest of the committee to do that. And as Mrs. Miyakawa, I think, alluded to, Mr. Raw and Mrs. Miyakawa went out to sites and looked at some of those projects. You probably saw in the board questions that came up around the capital outlay plan and those projects. So that was, I think, a good exercise and just involvement from the committee in that process. And then cell tower lease, we discussed that. Have done some previous Friday updates on that. We had some good discussion on that. That's a cell tower that's at our courtyard where our maintenance, operation, and transportation departments are. And at this time, based on our need to utilize that space, we'll be notifying the company that we're not interested in renewing the agreement, and so we can make use of that space that's valuable there in that area. We also are continuing to look at the board policy, which we've discussed on the facility subcommittee. And then Tivoli, I just shared with the committee that we have received the county recorded agreements that were board approved, and that for Crossroads West, there continues to be discussion around the development that's happening out in that area, and that Dwayne from Modesto City has reached out to Dave, who is the owner representative, and he said we should be expecting something soon around those mitigation agreements for Crossroads West. So that's just a little recap of our last meeting, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. George, do you want to add anything to that with regards to the walk around or anything? You're muted. George, you're muted.
Yeah, there's just a lot of different things that are happening, but everything seems to be going fine. I think that's a great report on what's happening. I think the board was provided with a narrative, about a 2-page narrative from Jennifer and myself, our visits throughout the schools, what we saw on the to-do list for the summer, and some comments we had. And so just kind of make some clarifications of what's happening out there. And there's a lot happening even on the facility side. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any questions, Ms. Lindsay?
Yes, Lizette or George, either one. In the development over in Crossroads West, which obviously I'm not sure, are they in the process of beginning to sell home sites there? Have they decided whether they're going to be in a SEPA or if they're not? Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Who you want? Go ahead, Lizette, if you want, or me, whatever you want to do.
Oh, I will concede to you, Mr.
Okay.
Rogge.
So the answer is yes. If you go out there, Mrs. Lindsay, you'll see that the dirt is being turned over, and They're beginning development out there. We are waiting for the owners to sign the agreement for the mitigation agreements. What that basically means, when they sign it and we sign it, we are able to formulate, a CFD. And in that CFD is what we will do to manage, just like the current CFDs that we have. We currently have a CFA that has 3 CFDs in it. The new CFDs will not be under that CFA. It will
Right.
have its own organization. So in other words, short answer is it's just moving forward to create the CFA. We're not going to be collecting dollars until houses go into the ground, because the way CFA works is that we collect the money when the house closes escrow, not when you pull the permit. So right now, Lizette's department is getting a lot of money coming through on developer fees, because a contractor must pay the developer fees when they pull a permit to build a house. When a CFD is done, they don't pay until it closes escrow at the end. So we don't have any houses built yet, but we need to get them in place for when those houses start being built. And we fully anticipate, through their own words, that houses are going to be under construction this summer.
And George, do you know, I know at one point the Tivoli land was designated to be under one of the CFDs. Do you know if it's going to be?
That is correct. So know that Tivoli is one CFD. Crossroads West is a separate CFD. Crossroads East is a separate CFD.
So
So-
will the Tivoli, will it not be in the current group, or will it be on its own?
That's a great question. I'm anticipating, because I spoke once to Dwayne about this, and because the CFD in Tivoli and in Crossroads Crossroads West only is 2 school districts, us
Right.
and Modesto City Schools, that they could both fall under the same CFA board organization to manage both of those CFDs. And that he does not recommend that we will be able to remove the CFD 1990H, which is Crossroads East, and move it into that CFD. He did not think that that would be possible. So the old CFA will still be in effect. The new CFA will be. So there'll probably be 2 CFA boards.
And so Tivoli will go under the new CFA if we can do it.
Yes, it will, probably along with Crossroads West. will
Right.
fall under that same CFA board.
Okay, that's good. I like that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Dwayne has indicated he takes the lead and works with legal counsel on that process. And he's indicated looking at that, once we have the Crossroads West mitigation agreements in place, then we'd move forward with that, as those 2, that along with Tivoli, would be feeding into that new CFA, as Mr. Ross said.
Was a little nervous because there was some rumblings out there a year or so ago that we weren't going to be able to go into a CFA. So I'm glad. It makes me very happy to know we have a CFD getting going. So super.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just one other thing I'm just going to add, and I apologize, Ms. Miyakawa, but I just want to put a couple of numbers in your head. If you looked at the Friday update, Lizette was very forthcoming with her numbers. We're anticipating upwards, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Lizette, we have upwards of about $11 million coming for potential reimbursement for modernization funds over multiple school sites. And also don't forget that our bond fund would be reimbursed, or the Sylvan District would be reimbursed the $2 million plus that we paid for the Tivoli property. We own the school site in Tivoli already. We already paid for it. So that money would be reimbursed to the district. So potentially we have about $13 million to replenish our facilities account, in addition to money that would be raised under CFA for Crossroads West and Tivoli. So fiscally, we could be in a good position as long as the state of California does get facility funds and reimburses us for those. We could be in financially good position for facilities.
George,
Super.
does that
Thank you,
mean with that money, because it's supposed to be reimbursed to the bond fund, but we use general fund money to fund those projects as well. So, because if it were to go straight back into the bond bank, those projects have all been completed that were voted on by the community, right?
So
they would
I'll
be
put it the simple way here. It's
Okay.
going to be an accounting adjustment that will work with the accounting department. But you are right. Even though technically the money must go back into the bond account, when we got to the very end of our end projects, we depleted the bond account and then started going into a lot of other accounts that will need to be replenished when those funds come back. So there'll be some accounting that will be done, but I'm very confident that we'll be able to use it on pretty much whatever facilities projects we have coming up in the future. Because you just saw tonight that you're going to vote on, there's only about $1,000 or so left in that bond account. And so, yeah, it's going to be some accounting work, but you're right in that we used the other funds later to pay for projects that we could have funded out of the bond account.
bond,
We
right.
didn't have the money in the bond account at the time.
Okay.
Jennifer, can I have just a second? You know, I just wanted whoever's listening to really be appreciative of the Board of Sylvan in the past 30 years. When we originally passed that bond, it was what, a $15 million dollar bond, or 50, wasn't that right, George? 15 million?
Well, let's
Something like that.
SEFA bonds are different than Sylvan District bonds.
I realize that. No, I just wanted to say how well we have been able to extend using those bonds over the years, even though we did finally have to go into different bonds. We really were very careful on how we spent them. And I think that Dwayne and all the people that were involved in that SEFA committee really need to have some, they're unknowns. They're unknown people, but they did a good job.
Well, I will compliment Dwayne, his team, and all those who have participated in SEFA. Village One, which is CFD 1994-1, will likely within less than the next 12 months will be closed out, meaning that it'll be fully funded, repaid back, and that tax will no longer appear on property tax bills.
Which is not unheard of in some districts.
It's very rare. It's very
Yes.
rare. But fortunately, that happened for 1994-1.
I'm a happy camper.
Great. Thank you very much for all that. Lizette, did you have anything else, or we're good?
Nothing further.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead into the action item portion of our agenda. The first item up for action is approving the Sylvan Union School District audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2020.
Good evening. The board will be presented with the Sylvan Union District Audit Report for the period ending June 30th, 2020. The audit was conducted by Christie White Incorporated. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the entire audit process was completed 100% virtually. At this time, I'd like to commend the staff at the district office that made this virtual audit possible. From the fiscal services team, Holly Fox, district office accountant, Patty Penaloza, account technician, Sue Lodi, account technician, and from the student attendance team, which is a team of one, Holly Parnell, student attendance specialist. She coordinated school site information for student attendance testing. We also have tonight Mr. Craig Arona, President and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Stanislaus County. He'll be available to respond to any questions the board may have regarding audit finding 2020-1. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Monique Monzo from Christie White Incorporated, who will present our audit report. Monique?
Hi, all. Good evening. Thank you to the board and to Miss Lisa Sandoval for tonight's invite. It's nice to see some of your faces. Some of you look really familiar, and I definitely miss, attending in person. So as Lisa mentioned, a independent audit is required to be completed by December 15th. However, there was an extension in the reporting deadline to March 31st to all state agencies, which the district went ahead and completed. Next slide. So just to give you a background of the audit process, if you're new to the board or even to the district, the audit is typically completed in 2 phases. We have the interim phase, which is normally in the springtime, and we focus on internal controls and state compliance. So with internal controls, we're testing the design and effectiveness of those controls over the district's cash receipt process, purchasing, disbursements, and payroll functions. With state compliance, we're looking at anything that's applicable to the district and determined by the state audit guide. So with state compliance, again, we're looking at attendance, instructional materials, ACES, and so on. The year-end portion of our audit occurs after the unaudited actuals are approved by the board. And here we're more focused on the financial aspect. So we're looking at the ending balances for your cash, accounts payable, accounts receivable. We're also looking at revenue and expenditures that were incurred throughout the year. Next slide. Throughout the audit, the district's management and the auditor, us, hold different responsibilities. So district's management is responsible for the, again, design and maintenance of effective internal controls, the preparation and ownership of financial statements, as well as preparing and managing the budget. So that would be your original budget, first interim, second interim, and so on. The auditor responsibility, we are responsible for providing an opinion over the financial statements, as well as conducting the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, as well as Yellow Book, or otherwise known as government auditing standards. Next slide. Below, you'll see the summary of auditors' results. So here on page 93 of the PDF, or if you have the hard copy, it's page 85. It's just a summary of our opinions as well as the results of the audit. So for the financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion possible. In our opinion, the district's financial statements were presented fairly in all material respects. Because you are a school district, we do follow Yellow Book, meaning we don't issue an opinion on internal controls, but we definitely consider them and are required to report a finding if there are any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. This year, I'm happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Our next opinion involves federal awards. Because the district expended more than $750,000 in federal funds, we had to perform a single audit. So for 2019-20, we selected 2 programs, Title I and New Funding Coronavirus Relief Funds, and ensured compliance with uniform grant guidance. Again, an unmodified opinion was issued and no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were disclosed there. Our last opinion is state awards. So again, going back to state compliance, your attendance, instructional materials, ACES. Again, another unmodified opinion. We didn't know any material weaknesses. However, there was a significant deficiency noted within the ACES program, which will be on the next slide. So again, this finding related to ACES. What happened here is in our reconciliation of sign-in and out sheets compared to the attendance summary for the week of November 18th, we identified 8 of 25 students who didn't receive proper attendance. And overall, there was an understatement of 4 attendance days or students served reported on the first half base grant attendance report, which is submitted to the CDE. Additionally, it seems that the district or the program doesn't have a priority policy in place, meeting requirements of AB 1567. And what that is, it grants first enrollment to students identified as either homeless or foster youth. Good thing is there's no fiscal penalty here, so no question cost. And overall, our recommendation is just kind of strengthening those controls over the reconciliation process when compiling that first half-base grant to the CDE. And of course, implementing a priority policy, meeting the requirements of AB 1567. Next slide. Finally, we're also required to provide some sort of implementation status related to prior year findings. So if you can recall, to 18-19 year, there were 4 findings. And I'm happy to be here and let you know that 3 out of the 4 were implemented. So those corrective actions that were provided, we reviewed those and they were properly implemented. ACES was the only one that wasn't cleared. And I feel when it comes to the ACES program, there's a lot of different components that we're looking at. So again, just focusing on the reconciliation process when it comes to that program. Lastly, like Lisa mentioned, I just want to give a special thanks to both Lizette, Lisa, and their team. They did an amazing job. I know all the challenges they faced. On top of a remote audit, they did an amazing job. So again, thank you to each of you. And that's the end of my presentation. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Monique. Appreciate that. I'm looking for questions from the board. George, is your hand up? Okay, just want to make sure it hadn't been taken down before. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I like to use a little yellow hand here because I think it's kind of a cool feature.
Okay.
But, anyway, thank you for that audit. I think it's a good audit. Congratulations to staff. I think you've done an outstanding job and I'm very pleased with it. I will share with you that, and I hope I'm not offending the Boys and Girls Club, but this is 2 years in a row for this finding. I don't know if that means 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strikes, you're out. But to me, I've run in my previous life in the work world, I ran many government contracts. And I can assure you that the rules are tough and stringent, but you have to be obedient to them to have the contract or they pull the contract from you. And I know it's not a money thing and I don't want to sound too harsh, but you got to fix this finding, Boys and Girls Club. You got to fix it. And if it comes up again, I'm not threatening, but I'm just saying we may have to look at other alternatives. You just can't keep making the same mistake over and over and over, especially when you know what you've done. And this is the 2nd year for this finding. If a 3rd year comes, I don't know, I think I've said enough and I hope I'm not hurting Boys and Girls Club because we love you, but you got to get this finding thing together, folks. That's got to be fixed. I've been on this board, like I said, for 20 some years. There were times, 10 years, 15 years in a row, we would go with 0 findings. And it's impressive. And it's hard to see a finding. And so if you can help us out, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Rod, just to provide the board with a little bit additional information, because Monique and Christy White don't necessarily have all this information following the report. And so we have already met with Boys and Girls Club and Mr. Arona is here also that can speak to that. But staff here have met with staff at Boys and Girls Club and talk through additional measures to be put in place that we've already started actually to add steps on their side as well as on our side for the regular and timely submission and review of this information. And in addition to that, we're still we will be actually having further discussions following Boys and Girls Club conversations with CDE and SCO and looking at electronic attendance system that will need to go through an approval process and can help eliminate some of the duplication and some of that, error that can be prone through that process. So we're working very diligently to not only put steps in place, but to monitor those throughout the year to avoid this from being a future finding. And Mr. Arona, I appreciate the collaboration of the meetings and our conversations that we've had through that. I don't know if there's anything further that I may have missed that he may want to add.
No, well, first, good evening, and thank you for having me. And Mr. Ra, your comments are definitely well noted, and I can just speak to what I know with, again, no excuses other than I know moving forward of when I have arrived at the Boys and Girls Club that, I and we take attendance seriously. And as Lizette said, that we've already had some discussions with some new policies and procedures in place. Hopefully the recommendation of an electronic system is reviewed based on my months here, well, a year and a half now, and most of that in COVID. I know the two systems does cause some possibly some internal issues, which again is not an excuse, but having an electronic system that we have already in place, because we do collect a lot of data, and then comparing that with what we call a wet signature. I'm hoping that we, and based on our discussion, have put some extra steps in place to avoid missing some attendance days. And then moving forward, hopefully that can, those continued discussions can happen to see about our systems that we currently have, and maybe adding to those so we can obviously avoid this, because we do know attendance is important, and obviously we are here to support your district, and definitely don't want any fault or ill will on your finding. Just like when we go through our own audits, et cetera, we don't wish that upon us and others that we work with. So totally noted.
Thank you, Mr. Arona. Can I ask if the priority policy that Monique mentioned, is that on our side? Is it a policy that we need to have as a board, or is that a policy that Boys and Girls has in terms of making sure homeless and foster kids are prioritized?
Well, I can just answer for our policies and philosophy is that we do not turn kids away based on any economic hardship, any backgrounds, personal, et cetera. So I think that's something that obviously I would entertain to be a part of if that is something your district is now being required to, because that's an easy fit for us in regards to moving forward to make it, I guess, more of a formal policy. But as of now, just in general, if this answers some of your question, kids are not turned away based on any of those that I just mentioned. Capacity and space is typically the issue we face, and we have not, based on what I know, and at least based on my tenure here, which has been short, we've never had that issue. So we've never had to, put kids on the waiting list or deny kids from attendance.
Okay, thank you, Monique. Can you clarify that? Just has to be something formally in writing, and that's what's missing, or?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend implementing some sort of, or approving some sort of policy in regard to that standard when it comes to the first priority to homeless and foster youth students.
Okay, so that's something then, Lizette, would we add to a future agenda to handle on our end? Is that correct?
Yes, I've made a note of that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I saw a little bit of stirring. Was there anyone else that had a question for either Mr. Arona or? Yes.
It was me with my little
Well,
hand.
I've got Miss Harvey, and then I'll go to you next, Miss Lindsay. Thank you.
Get rid of my little hand.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Rona. I was just wondering, how many students do you have on a daily basis? Could you just kind of estimate, or is that?
No, definitely. Well, as I've been for the last year, like most, I open up our pre-COVID or non-COVID numbers are approximately 400 a day.
Okay.
At your Sylvan site, it's more around the 3 to 340 range, if my memory stands correct. We do have some non-Sylvan sites. Right, and then during COVID, we served approximately on average about 100 students a day, and I believe about 75% of those were Sylvan students.
And then,
and that was in person.
Okay, that's fantastic. And then my other question is, do other Boys and Girls Clubs use electronic? Like, I guess I'm a little confused. Do you guys use electronic check in and out, or?
Yes, yeah, we use an electronic system called Trax, and
Okay.
we've used that as far as my understanding, we've used that for quite a few years now. Since we've been a part of partnering with Sylvan, and so our processes have been and currently is that kids check in electronically when they arrive, and then the wet signature comes with a parent, signing out, or a parent or guardian signing out their children. And again, I feel there is some additional conversations in which Lizette has been great with, working with us and talking through some solutions already, and just
Okay.
looking at that to see if we can maybe narrow the error rate on looking at two complete different systems and make sure that they match. And again, no excuses, but looking at two of those, I think that could maybe solve some of the issues.
So by the two systems, you mean your system and our district systems?
No,
or
no,
is
no,
it-
they're both our systems. I'm definitely not passing the systems off that one is better than that. We require currently through our ACES contract, we require a signature to check out students.
Okay.
Per California Department of Ed, that we are allowed to, if agreed upon, to have a single system, a wet signature for both, or an electronic signature or electronic check-in process.
Okay, so what you're saying is when the two systems, they're the two systems within yours, one's electronic and one's wet.
Correct. So we're looking
Okay.
at a database of electronic check-ins
Okay.
to signature pages. And again, that's the system, and we have to own that. And I'm not definitely not taking that responsibility. I'm just saying for future that possibly we can look at other avenues.
So just do you have an idea of what's the best practice that you've seen at other ones? Like, obviously this is something you just inherited, but do you have is it all electronic that's the best option, or? Don't know?
I have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because it's really depends on the organization that has a system in place, and so it's really hard for me to say one's better than the other. I personally lean to electronic just because, as you as a district are so data driven, and we have so much data that is required from us through the Boys and Girls Club of America, that it just, to me, I don't, this is my opinion, it makes sense to move towards, electronic systems when they're available, and if they're adequate, to try to condense that, that manual or old fashioned way, I guess. So.
Okay, great. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Ms. Lindsay, did you have something?
Yes, I don't know if it has anything to do with us or with the Boys and Girls Clubs, but or the auditor. But I understand the homeless and the foster youth, but what about our really low income families that really cannot afford Boys and Girls Clubs? I've been approached numerous times by families who say we just cannot afford the cost of the Boys and Girls Club. Is that established by us as Sylvan, or is that established by ASA, the group that we're with, or is that through Boys and Girls Clubs?
May I speak to that? Or?
Yes, please.
So ACES programs, obviously, it funding changes from district to district based on the contracts awarded to the state, and program or nonprofits like us run their programs differently. So there are paid for service, what we call pay for service or fee for service programs, and at no cost. And that really depends on the district and the agency running it and their funding mechanisms. I can speak for us, run at least up to COVID, our two ACES sites, one at CF Brown and Sylvan, children did not pay. It was fully funded by the ACES grant, and then the additional students that we do not, that we take that are interested are fully funded by our our funds, fundraising, et cetera. So we're paid right now for 80 per the state, 84 students per site. That's the ACES funding we receive. And I think at CF Brown, I think we average about 115 or 120 kids, and I think Sylvan was around 125 or so. And so that was, funded through, fundraising efforts and things that we do in our organization. So, we are looking at, we did charge through this school year, which is $40 a month, just due to COVID, and like all have, taken some financial hits, but we still wanted to provide service. But again, we have a sliding scale to accommodate those that can't afford the $40, and we scholarship those students.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you, but I have to honestly tell you that is not what's being told to the community. Now, I don't know if it's our office that's doing it, our offices that are doing it, or if it's coming straight from the Boys and Girls Club, but that is nowhere near the amount of money. I mean, we're talking, I'm trying to think, but I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of more like $40 a week, and not a month. And it's really, I had numerous families say, we can't afford to let our kids go there. And so I don't know if it's coming from our office, who in there asking and calling, but we need to kind of get a better communication going, because there are some severely needy children out there right now. Parents need to work, and parents haven't got the money to, and they don't fall under the homeless or the foster guidelines.
We do charge a higher figure for our summer camp, which is done at one of your locations. Typically in the past, that's $100 a week. And, includes more than just not just, but more than after school program type of programs. And this summer we're charging $125. We've added some new things to, and again, sliding scale, and we scholarship students that can't afford that. But I don't know how to address the $40 a month to a week. I mean, I just know that that's what we charge and what we promote on any information that goes out. So, but I can definitely maybe talk to Lizette or someone that she can inform me about, and we can look into.
Maybe we could
those
talk about
populations.
locations of the sites. Both of them are in an area where there's a great need of those Boys and Girls Clubs. So maybe that's just something we could look at for maybe in the future.
And I could say that we did have this school year what we call distant learning camps. That was one area that the county allowed us to do. And so we were providing program to kids all day in their distant learning at our locations that we had.
Right.
To facilitate, and it was much more than $40 a month.
Right.
Because we were open from so there maybe I can look into, or we can look into seeing maybe there's some misunderstandings. So it's definitely worth looking into, because we definitely don't want to deny parents.
Is there, okay, and I'm not going to hold you at this, but is there some kind of a baseline? Is there a baseline like you do? Does Boys and Girls have a baseline where they say, if you're at this baseline, you pay a lesser fee, or how does it work? Is it a scale, or is it just a flat out fee? So
Boys and Girls Club, briefly, Boys and Girls Clubs are all run independently. And so we're in an independent organization from the one, in Tracy or Sacramento. And there's almost 4,000 Boys and Girls Clubs in America, and we all run differently. So it's really dependent upon, in this case, the district we're working to. Obviously, I think we've had a good relationship, working with your district, and we want to accommodate the needs of your students. And so obviously we have to operate, but those that have worked with me and in just a short period and other endeavors here, that I'm always, willing to entertain ideas or ways to look at problems if those are problems to deal with.
Okay, well, I'll talk with Lizette later about it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just Mia McCullough.
Yes, sure.
Sorry. Oh, I just, Mr. Rowan,
Yes.
I totally forgot about this, but I have heard some really good things about your not after school program, distant learning camps. Adorable name.
Thank you.
I've heard some really good things about that. I know it's been a big relief to a lot of families out there. And I know your team has been working really hard to keeping them safe. You know, and it's been a really positive service you guys have provided to our district and to the children of our district and to the families. So yeah, so even though this one little hiccup, I'm sure we're going to fix it and come back stronger. I also want to though thank you and your team for working so hard through this I don't know, wackadoodle time. So thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And thank you to your team.
Thank you. I will pass that along. Appreciate that.
I do have to share with you real quick before you go. When I was in college, I worked for the Boys Club of America. There was no girls, but the girls could come. But I got one of my first jobs was with the Boys Clubs of America.
Very good.
Well, and you just reminded me that I have some fundraising tickets I need to go back for. So thank you for that. I put that note in my phone for tomorrow.
It was that subliminal message, I guess, that.
That's right. Oh, there they are, right?
There you go.
So if anyone would like to support it, I'm sure Mary Ann Sanders can hook you up. All right. Thank you, Craig, for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you, Monique, for your presentation and your explanation. You always do a great job. You've got the heart of a teacher, and we appreciate you making that painless and understandable for us who are not auditors by DNA and blood. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
for
so much.
having me.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to, oh, wait, we have to approve it. We got to approve it. So looking for a motion to approve the audit.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Raw. I didn't catch the second. Second by Mrs. Lindsay. Roll call, please.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Hi.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, thank you. The motion carries. And Monique, you have to know that I have a brother-in-law who's an auditor. So I appreciate those who can explain things in an understandable manner. So thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll go ahead with the next item, which is the approval of the 2019-20 annual Measure A Performance Audit and Financial Report Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. So that all in one breath.
Each fiscal year, the district is legally required to have an audit of the district's general obligation bond, Fund 21. Once again, Christie White Incorporated performed the annual performance audit for the fiscal year 2019-20. Again, the entire audit process was completed 100% virtually. We had no audit findings reported. We have an ending cash balance of a little over $1,400. The audit was provided to 2 members of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee via email for review. Staff recommends the acceptance of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee's annual performance audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020.
Okay, thank you very much. And I understand this is our last one, right, Lisa?
Yeah. Oh, we'll always be audited. There'll be something else.
All right, very good. Looking for a
Make
motion
the
to
motion
approve.
to
Got it.
approve.
Motion's been made by Mr. Ross, second by Mrs. Talcott and the wire.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Hi.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so for the next items, I'm going to go ahead and have, I think C, D, E, F, and G are all job descriptions. So I think I'm going to let Dee Dee kind of launch out in an overall description, and then we can vote on each one as they come up. So Dee Dee, why don't you take a deep
All
breath and go for it.
Thank you, Mrs. Miyakawa. So the following job descriptions are presented for the board's review, input, and action. Under the direction of the superintendent and the board, we move forward with the positions that were restored in the Educational Services Department, and we're working to hire also for the additional vacancies. It's a very competitive job market for administration and for all school hiring, honestly, and we're working diligently to post, recruit, interview, and then be able to bring to the board by May 11th, the staff's recommendation for administrative assignments. So the director positions were posted with draft, clearly marked on the job descriptions in Edgewain. The old job descriptions did not accurately outline the job duties, so the drafts were posted. Any changes, deletions, or additions to the proposed revised job descriptions as directed by the board in tonight's board meeting will be included in the job descriptions, and the revised job descriptions will be reposted on Edgewain if needed. And the final versions, as always, will be posted to our district website. So they're sort of in order. I have them in order. The first is the Director of Professional Learning and Induction. This is the newest of the old job descriptions. It was actually approved in 2015. The only additions to this job description are the two underlined pieces under representative duties that have to do with assessment and also supporting just the ed tech or educational technology. This person works very closely with our program specialists in educational technology. And in the very end of the job description, the personal qualities, that language was updated to match the other descriptions. So Mrs. Maycow, I don't know if you want me to stop there and we'll go one by one at this point. Or if you want me just to keep rolling.
Why don't you just keep rolling and then we'll.
Okay,
see
and then we can go back. Okay.
Yeah.
The second job description, that would be item D, is for the Director of Compliance and Accountability. This position that was formerly held by Mrs. Marty Reed used to be called the Director of Student Services and Categorical Programs. For the board's reference, anything that was highlighted yellow was the same, and you can see that most of the job description has been updated. I want to thank both Mrs. Reed and Mrs. Granger and their work working with other districts as well to find the best language and content for this job description for the Director of Compliance and Accountability. And again, that job description, the old version, was actually from 2004. So this job has really changed, expanded over the course of the years since then. 2004 to 2021, 17 years is a long time in schools. And that's why we're working on these. The next one for the board's reference is the Director of Technology. And I fear in my attempt to try to build a really strong pool for this, that there may have been some confusion. So just so you know, the original Director of Technology was board approved in 2004. I was trying to think, did we even have smartphones in 2004? I don't think so. Maybe we did. People are nodding. Maybe I didn't. I might have still had a flip phone. I don't know. So so to say that things have, yes, I did have one of those, and I was very proud of it. So to say that things have changed in this realm goes without saying. So there are two versions of essentially the same job description. One is for classified management. And so the only difference with the classified management version is if you'll see under the minimum education and experience requirements, this is not a certificated staff member. This would be a classified management staff member. So they would have a bachelor's degree in technology or related field. They could have a master's degree, which is desirable. We'd like them to have some supervisory experience and hopefully some experience in this school setting, but they may or may not have that for classified management. But the certificated management models the expectations for our directors that are certificated. And so those are the administrative credentials, the teaching credentials, and a master's degree. They have different amount of work days, they have different salary schedules. And the reason they're both posted is that so that we could build the most competitive and recruit into the most competitive candidates for this position. And so currently, Mrs. Reed is holding this position, but in replacing that, we're only hiring one person for Director of Technology. It could be a classified management or it could be certificated management. So the core of the job description is exactly the same, but the classified management salary schedule, of course, is different. The certificated salary management schedule is different, and the educational requirements are different. But there's only one position that will be hired for. We're just trying to recruit the best people possible in both fields. And then the last two are classified job descriptions: campus supervisor and treatment nurse. Campus supervisor, it might win the old, it's 1997. So you can think about how old you were in 1997. And so that has been updated. And then the treatment nurse used to be called registered nurse, licensed vocational nurse, special education. The treatment nurse is a classified position for our nurses. They could be a registered nurse or a licensed vocational nurse. They work at all of our school sites. We refer to them as the treatment nurses. They work under the supervision and direction of the credentialed school nurse, and Carrie Albert oversees that program as well. So both F and G are classified job descriptions. I want to thank the collaboration and joint efforts with CSEA. We held a couple of meetings and reviewed these together, and they have given approval for both of the proposed job descriptions that you have for your review.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It was a lot, I know, for you to prepare and for us to kind of comb through. So we're going to go ahead and take these one at a time. And if you have a question, clarifying question beyond what she has explained and beyond what was given to us in our preparatory readings, we'll invite that at this time. So we're going to start with action item 11C for the Director of Professional Learning and Induction. Do I have any clarifying questions? Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes, I must have missed it, but what position is this covering?
So this position is one that we currently have. Currently, this position is held by Dr. Tiara Crothers.
Okay. Okay, so with these, this will be a separate, then it will no longer be working in tandem with the next one, which is, what's the next one?
So
The Director of Compliance and whatever, and you why did you change this? You've got us all confused here. They will not work in tandem anymore.
So all of the three director positions, the Director of Professional Learning, the Director of Compliance, and the Director of Technology, all are under Educational Services. So do they work in tandem? Yes, they're all part of the same department. So the two positions that are being restored or put back is the Director of Technology and the Director of Compliance. Those two are being restored. The Professional Learning is currently held by Dr. Tiara Crothers. So they all are under Ed Services, and they are part of the same team.
So there's that one that Mrs. Reed used to do. Okay, who's been doing it?
A little bit of everybody's been doing that.
Everybody,
yes,
okay.
Everybody
Okay.
took a piece of that. And honestly, a lot of it, Mrs. Granger absorbed in her role as assistant superintendent. And Mrs. Reed has been integral in that as well.
So was that the part that was mostly dealt with by Laura Wharf?
So no, so Laura Wharf was the assistant superintendent of Ed Services, and she oversaw all of these pieces. At the time for the compliance and accountability, which used to be called categoricals, that was Marty Reed's original position, and Mrs. Wharf was her supervisor.
Okay, and she moved into the technology. Okay,
that's correct.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you remember, Cindy, that's kind of why they gave us this flow chart last time. Remember, this is what it used to look like, and then this is cleaned up and streamlined and reassigned. And so the job descriptions are to comply with the new streamlined. Everyone has their lane kind of job.
I was just trying to remember who did it before.
Who did it before? Sure.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Made the motion already.
Thank you. Mr. Roth made the motion to approve, and Ms. Talcott has seconded.
Board Member Harvey.
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay.
Aye.
Board Member Ross.
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next one, as already introduced by Cindy, is approving the job description for Director of Compliance and Accountability. Has this brand spanking new name and a lot of changes. Looking for any questions, if not an action to approve.
Make the
Motion.
motion to approve.
Motion approved. Thank you, Miss Harvey for the motion and second by Mrs. Talcott. Thank you. Roll call.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. The next one is our approving the revised job description for Director of Technology. Looking for questions.
I make a motion to
Feedback.
approve.
Motion's been made by
Second
Ms.
it.
Harvey, second by Mrs. Talcott.
Oh, wait, you went so fast.
Wait, do you have a
You didn't let us ask any questions.
I did, but you had like.
I had my hand like this. I was being nice.
Go.
I didn't
Go,
yell
go,
at
go.
you.
Don't
My
yell at me.
question, Dee Dee, is I understand that, and please clarify this for me. I know that you've written it, but you said you're taking 2 pools. Are you looking down the road to expand this into a 2-person job, or is this a 1-person job that you're just drawing from 2 pools?
So the second option that you said, this is a 1-person job and we're drawing from the pools that are out there for both classified management and certificated management so that we can find the best director of technology that's out there to be hired. So it's still 1 position and there is not any plan to expand that into 2 positions.
Okay. And
I think
then will there-
George, Cindy, I think George brought this up like a long time ago, if you remember, George, where he just said, look, maybe we look for someone who's not certificated. Maybe this person, is highly qualified. And so,
Right.
I think this has been kind of brewing and stewing for a while. She's just.
No,
put it
I just
into motion.
misread the information when I was reading it. And so I wanted to clarify it for my own self. Do you feel, Dee Dee, down the road that one direct, I mean, I was looking at what all we've gone through for the last two years with technology. Are we going to be hiring more techs? Or are we going to be, are there going to be, there's got to be more people.
So that was also, so thank you for that. That is an ongoing discussion about staffing and support, particularly after this year of all the distance learning and the specific demands for that, but ongoing in the district. And you may recall that we discussed in the previous meeting as well in the department that there is a person that's identified with ed tech. There's the director of technology. We also continue to have a contract for security and safety and monitoring with DataPath, and always looking at ways that we can provide the best and highest quality service to all of our end users. Mrs. Granger has talked a lot about our 9,000 end users and the demands on that. So is there a need for more staff? Possibly, and that's something we'll continue to look at. But for this position for Director of Technology, we are only planning on having 1.
Okay. And the reason I throw this out to you is because in being a delegate, I'm up working with legislature, and legislature right now there's a movement within the state of California, and I don't know if it's across the nation or not, but to have a form of distance learning as accepted part of public school. Right now, the only accepted is in person or homeschooling. And those are the only 2 public acceptances. And I didn't know if you were on top of that. You knew that was happening. I just got it down the grapevine. So I see that if that does pass as part of legislation, then we definitely will have another area that we will need to be watching and staying on top of all the time. So just kind of a heads up for you, and maybe
Thank
a heads
you.
up for all of us, because we need to think about that being the future education of certain children in the United States and maybe the world.
Thank you. So Eric and cabinet and executive leadership team, we literally talked about this today. We talk about it and all, we're very closely monitoring legislation and waiting anxiously for updates from the state on what will be permissible or encouraged or allowed. And this is a part of it. So thank you for that update. And we have people, we're watching the same things and waiting. So we know
Okay.
that technology will continue to be a huge piece of what we do and how we both teach and learn. So
Then-
thank you for that.
Then our
There's a
board
motion
needs
to
to be,
approve.
the board needs to be aware that this is a possibility, and this could also expand technology. So I guess that's where I was kind of going with this, is the possibility of another position down the road.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mrs. Lindsay. Velma, did you get the original motion and second?
I
So we've already had a
did.
motion and second. We'll
Harvey-
go ahead.
Harvey
with-
motioned
and Talcott seconded.
Would you like me to do roll call?
Please, yes.
Okay. Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Mikawa.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. All right, last two in this little section. We're looking for the approve the revised job description for our campus supervisor. Looking for a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Ms. Harvey and second by Mr. Raw. Roll call, please.
No discussion
Talcott.
whatsoever, huh?
Aye.
Did you have a question on this one too?
I just wondered, I mean, I looked at how old it is, and I was just amazed at that there wasn't one single thing in it that was brought over from the old one. So it was a complete rewrite. Is this something that's coming down from the state that's giving us guidelines, or did we just kind of create our own?
No, so actually, there are several pieces that actually were kept, including the assisting with administration and those pieces. No,
Really?
that's
I
not.
didn't see
Yeah,
it.
that's okay. It's not coming down from the state. This was created out of the work of just talking with the folks involved with this, as well as administration, and updating so that we had current language for all the parts of the job description that reflect 2021 instead of 1997. So there are a couple things that were the same. I mean, they're still supervising, they're patrolling, providing security, and they're providing support to our students. The campus supervisors are really very key and integral to building relationships with students and with families, and working closely with staff. So the new job description just reflects that in more current language.
Okay, Dee Dee, just correct me if I'm wrong, because I read so many of them and got them all mixed in my head. Is there an area in this job description that talks about any kind of training on sexual harassment or sexual behavior?
So all of our staff are eligible and are mandated to participate in that mandated training prior to hiring, and then also annually. We provide that online training and ongoing training as there are updates. So every staff member in the district, regardless, including this one, receives that training.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Velma, again, I got the motion in the second, correct?
So I got
Or-
Harvey as a motion and Talcott as the second, but I think
Okay.
you said Raw.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You go ahead and keep it like that. That's fine. Go ahead and do a roll call.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Hi.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Mia.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, our last one is the revised job description for treatment nurse. Any questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's
Second.
been made by Mr. Ross, second by Ms. Harvey. Roll call, please.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Dee Dee. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And board. Okay, let's go ahead with our two resolutions for tonight. Our resolution, the first one being our Week of the Teacher.
Yes, actually, the Next two items are just really just important things to recognize tonight. And I appreciate the resolutions and the board making this public like this, especially this year. We're going to be recognizing, first of all, our certificated teachers, and then we'll be recognizing our classified employees. And again, we've dedicated, first of all, the week of May 2nd through the 8th for our week of the teacher. And, I could just go on and on about both of these groups, but, just this year, when you think about the challenges that this group of employees has faced, whether it was a distance learning teacher or whether it was an in-person learning teacher, the courage it took for them to meet that challenge, because they love their kids. And, for them not to be able to see their kids in person. I mean, I know when I was a teacher, that's what energized me. And I know for our teachers, that was so important for them to be able to see them. And just the faces we've seen already as some of these kids are able to come back, the happy faces of the teachers that are seeing these kids come on campus. So probably more than ever before, this resolution really means a huge thing. And so just on behalf of the district and along with the board and the leadership, as we get to May 2nd, we really want our teachers to know how much we appreciate them. And I believe this resolution outlines just the impact that they have on the lives of children. And I think that's one of the things we think back as adults. One of the most common things we hear is, think of a teacher that meant a lot to you when you were a kid. And there's not one adult who could not see that face and remember the impact they had on their lives. So, again, I appreciate the work they've been doing. And when we get to that date, that'll just be the specific date we recognize them. But just know every day we know the work they're doing. And I appreciate, just personally as the superintendent, but also as a parent and a grandparent, the impact that they are making on the lives of our kids, especially in Sylvan. There's just a lot in the media right now. There's just a lot of negative things in the press and it just really burns me up that they just broad brush and label some educators. And that is not our district. That is not us at all. And I'm really proud of the relationships we have with our labor partners with our SEA and both CSEA. And our teachers have been there with courage throughout this year. And I'll speak about classified in a minute, but I hope I'm not going on and on. This is something that I feel passionate about, and I know you do as well. I've heard comments, and it's emulated, and you can see it in this district, how much we value our teaching staff here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. Looking for a motion to approve the resolution of the week of the
So
teacher.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Ross, second by Mrs. Talcott.
Can we ask when we say anything? 'Cause
Nope.
Everybody wants to watch it.
All right, roll call, please.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay.
Slow down. I wanted to say something and you guys didn't even give anybody a chance. Jen?
You got to pick and choose, Mrs. Lindsay. You can't say something every time. Come on. Let's
Okay.
go. You can for this one.
I was trying to reconfirm. I think the date he said was the 2nd through the
Oh my
8th. Is
God.
that correct? Through the 2nd through the 8th?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
And what's your vote, Mrs.
Sorry
Lindsay?
about that, Christine. I think you would be happy to know that when you're voting on for teachers during that time.
No, I'm sorry. There's something. I have some cats and they're doing crazy stuff behind.
Oh, okay. Because you were looking at me.
I'm sorry. You know what? You can't tell who you're looking at. I got these COVID kitties and then they had babies and now it's
Oh dear. Okay, go Velma. Finish
Board
up.
Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Roth,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, thank you. This resolution never seems enough to me. I wish that that the heart of gold that you have for kids was reflected in a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, in terms of how we are able to compensate teachers. But I just want you to know how grateful and how greatly appreciated you are. Hopefully now, even more now than ever, after we've all had a year of online home school, that I hope that we're all a little more grateful and appreciative of the job that you do, and the heart that you have for kids, and the compassion that you've shown under very difficult circumstances, recognizing that you're experiencing the stress and trauma of this whole event, on top of also trying to help our kids feel some sort of normalcy in a time that's anything but normal. So our hearts are very grateful to you. And I hope that
take a deep breath, honey.
I
Take a
know.
deep breath.
I know. They know that my heart's with them. So with that, we'll go ahead and continue with our resolution for Classified Employees Week.
Okay, again, it's a pleasure for me to recognize this group of employees. And it's not by any ranking, it just that it happens that May 16th follows the 2nd. So I just, again, want to speak toward the efforts of our classified employees. You know, you think about what we've been dealing with here with COVID. And even through the summer months, all of the preparation, some of these employees have been here 12 months out of the year. So when we talk about fatigue and COVID fatigue, you think about this classified group of people. Many of them have not even had a break from that since March of last year. So, you know, I really want to recognize their efforts, and there's so many different job descriptions that they hold, and so many ways they support the district. It is clear we could not operate without this group of employees. And the employees I've met here in Sylvan that are of the classified group, just positive people, want to be part of everything, care about kids. And again, we would not have been able to do what we've been able to do if we didn't have these employees, that are classified employees, and our labor partners in classified, wanting the best for the district. So, you know, again, this is going to be in May. We appreciate them all the time, but I think during this month of May is when we get there. You know, the things that are in this resolution, I think, depict what we feel about our classified employees, and we thank them very much.
Thank you very much. Looking for a motion to approve the resolution for Classified Employees Week. Motion's been made by Mrs. Lindsay,
Second.
girl. Second by Mr. Raw. Roll call, please.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye. Thank you very much. Motion carries. You know, we have this tradition in the district of honoring them by having our classified shadowing week. And so Mrs. Talcott, I hope we get to initiate you into that next year, where we it's one of my favorite things to do, where we each pick a different classified member and shadow them for the morning or for as much time as you can. I know you two are teachers, but that really illustrates the fact that our classified staff are a part of these kids' life from the moment they step on the bus till the day they leave the office to go home, and all that happens in between. And just really grateful for all the good people that we have in this district who put their heart into the jobs that they do and really care to make this district as successful as it is. So our thanks to all of you for that. Okay, let's go on with our action item 11J, the approving the 2021-22 capital outlay plan. Lizette.
Yes.
This should be on. Oh, there he is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sean.
Turn
Yeah.
it over to Mr. Smith.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you. As shared at the March 30th board meeting as an informational item and returning to you this evening as an action item, I present to you the 2021-22 capital outlay plan. However, I'd like to point out a couple of items of note that have either changed since last month or that may need further clarification. The first item is actually on the system replacement plan. And thanks to the work of the facilities subcommittee and the board members that have visited some of the sites recently, We're going to remove Freedom Elementary's stage from the floor tile section. And instead, we'll be looking into the drainage issues at the classroom doorways at that site and try to take care of that. The second item is to clarify the security camera project that is on the capital outlay plan as being at USAC and Dan Savage. However, the availability of COVID funding and the ability to purchase the cameras using that one-time fund, the intent is to roll the project out district-wide. Of course, keeping the board in the loop continuously through Friday updates and bringing this to you as an action item at the May board meeting. With all that being said, I welcome any questions the board may have at this time.
Okay, looking for questions, Mr. Raw.
Yes, thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. It was a pleasure going to the schools. I support your list that you have there. A couple of the items I saw that you moved over into COVID funds. I would just like to suggest a couple of things. One is, I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the, what do you call it? The Standiford playground with this year. If we can, that's great. I will make myself available as part of the subcommittee to help in any way possible on that. If not, do what you have to do on that. I support whatever you can do. I know it's going to be, we're on a little bit of a short leash to see if that could be done this summer or not, but maybe, maybe not. As of for the other two items, COVID, you already mentioned the security cameras. Just ask that you keep the subcommittee in the loop on that. I'd like to talk a little bit about that with you as you're going out for bid and so forth on that. And then another thing I'd like to add to the list, if my fellow board members will allow me to do that, and it would fall under COVID funds if we can get Lizette to, put on her boxing gloves with the government and make sure we can get it under COVID. But to look at each site that doesn't have a shade structure, to get a shade structure using COVID funds, specifically USTAC. Jen and I were over there on a beautiful spring day, 80 degrees, and it felt 20 degrees hotter on the concrete. And it was really hot there. And if there's any way that we can get shade structures, not the umbrellas at the table, but a serious shade structure over there, even though it might not be a full-on wood one or metal one that we've done at some of the other sites, but something maybe even more simplistic that I believe Orchard was suggesting or something, just so that those kids, when they come back in August, that they will have a place to go out and be under shade while they're eating lunch and hanging out outside. It will keep them outside rather than in, but it's too hot to be on the concrete over there, folks. Just way too hot. We need to get some type of shade solution before August over there, if at all possible. I know that's a big ask, but it was, Jen and I know you can speak to it, Jen, but it was hot over there and it was only 80 degrees yesterday when we went over there. Just food for thought. If it's something we could kind of bump up so that when kids come back in August, it can be cool for them.
Absolutely.
And
All
I
right,
can speak to
that's
that
all
a
I have
little
to say.
bit and just say we've had a further discussion. We've been having discussions on that and had further discussions just today. And we'll be looking at options we can present with those DSA pre-approved structures like the route we're doing with Orchard, and look at those and work with sites on that. So that is in planning phases, I guess.
Good.
I think in all fairness, that site took, when it went in, we had plans for those structures, but there's just been so many repairs that we had to keep doing on that school's campus. So maybe now that we have completed this last round of upgrades and repairs, we can focus in on some of the other things like this, and not have to keep focusing on leaks or roofs leaks or whatever, and it has been many, many years that we've been trying to get some kind of shade structure over there. I'm full support of it.
Thank you. The only other thing that I had, Sean, and thank you for you and Lizette for addressing the items that George and I, our comments and questions that we had. The only other thing I would like to just hear a little more conversation on is the signage. If you can kind of have a conversation with our middle schools and see, I know that some of our schools have these electronic signs, some of them don't. Most of them, I think, have been purchased by PTA, and then we're responsible for upkeeping them after that. But how much are they utilized? Are they worth their money, or would a nice looking marquee, like we put up at USAC and Sylvan, would that be a better alternative and kind of kick the electronic thing to the curb if we're already getting plenty of communication? So if we could just have a little more conversation around that, if we really think it would be beneficial to the school, to have that electronic signage, or if we should look at something else in front of there, that would be great. That's the only other thing that I had on there that Sean didn't address. So any
I
other
wouldn't know
questions?
what was happening at Enoch's if they didn't have their big sign there.
Oh, is that right? Well, and if that's the case,
Yeah, no,
then it's worth it. But, just making sure we're evaluating them over time and seeing, is it worth it? We've heard they're not that user friendly, and maybe they're a little better now, but just having that conversation at our middle schools would be great. Okay, any other questions by the board before I'm looking for a motion to approve? Okay, looking for a motion then.
Make a motion. I don't know if I need to amend it. I'm encouraging the shade structures. Do you have any opposition to that, Lizette? Adding shade to that using COVID or not?
I don't think we have to do an amendment. I think we just ask her to see if she can
She can add it
work into
later,
that.
right?
Okay, then I'll
Yeah.
make them. I think she knows we want it really bad, and I think she wants it bad too. So,
She knows that Santa's list can always be made longer.
all right, make a motion to approve then.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mrs. Lindsay.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's get through the last couple. We have the approach, approve the contract with Park Planet for installation of play structure at CF Brown Elementary.
Yes, seeking your approval tonight for the contract with Park Planet for the replacement of the play structure at CF Brown Elementary in the kindergarten area.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Mr. Ross, second by Mrs. Talcott.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Last
you.
item on the, yep.
Is this being totally funded by the school district, or is the PTA?
No, this one's
helping
capital
with this?
outlay.
Nope, no PTA support on this one. Okay,
Not that I'm aware of.
so many of them we get PTA support on, so I wondered.
Right, no, this. Okay, last item is approving the expenditure of construction funds.
There weren't any in there.
It was empty.
It's empty, wasn't it? Other
No,
than-
it's there.
Got you staff monetization on it.
Yeah,
it's
but
got
that's
USAC.
just the spreadsheet. There was no bills in there, or did I miss them?
There's
There's
a,
Total.
Yeah, there's a balance.
390.
What?
it was shade
There's one
structure at
for a
Orchard and
popping-
locker change out.
Yes, there's one, it's $390 from the inspector.
Oh, okay. Make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion's been made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mrs. Talcott.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, motion carries. Very good. All right, we're at the last home stretch of the meeting of our consent agenda. I need to know if there's any items that need to be pulled for a separate vote, or you have a question on.
I do. I've got my paper. Item D and E,
You'd like questions or pulled?
pull, please.
Okay. Any questions by the board by any of the others? Okay, then we'll look for a motion to approve consent agenda minus 12D and E.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Oh, you tied. I don't even know. I'm going to give it to Harvey. Motion's been made by Ms. Harvey and seconded by Mr. Raw.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye. Motion carries for that. Ms. Lindsay, go ahead on your question or concern
Okay.
about D.
Okay, I've got to pull them up real quick here. Hold on a second. All right. Not D, E. Lizette, on D, on the agreement for the construction services, why is the remainder of the page left blank?
I think that's just a formatting so that it doesn't cut off the next section midway.
So this is the contract. This is it right here. No places where people sign. No, I mean, that's a
Oh,
lot
no.
of money.
It's
That's a lot of money.
There's 41 pages attached. The first page just cuts off partway through the page, and then it goes on to the second page, and the signatures are on the third page. And then
Okay.
there's several.
I guess I didn't get those. Oh,
It's
okay. I was
24
going the
pages
wrong way.
long.
Okay. All right. I didn't see that other, and I was like, why did that cut off in the middle of that? Is this, this seems like a very huge amount of money. I know, Mr. Raw, you and Mrs. Miyakawa being involved in the middle of all this. What was this including the new lockers, or is this the just
We
the
don't have anything
installation?
Mrs. Lindsay, we don't have anything to do with this one. This is a PTA thing.
No,
I don't
she
even know what
moved
this
on to
is.
the locker, George.
Yeah.
She's on the lockers.
Oh,
I
lockers.
said, I'm sorry, I said E.
Oh, okay, lockers. Yeah, I don't know anything about the shade structure.
The locker agreement, the board took action to approve the amount and moving forward with that. And this is just bringing forth for ratification the actual agreement itself, because of the time we were moving quickly to get those lockers ordered so that we could get that project done over the summer. So the board approved that. And then, like I said, this is just documenting and laying out the agreements, the timeline, and all of that.
Does this include the cost of the lockers?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that was where that's all I wanted to know
yeah.
was this just the installation, which seemed extremely, it's like quite a bit of money for
No,
that.
this is the lockers and the installation. Yes, I'm sorry, I missed out your question.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't mean to say D, Andy. I'm struggling with my iPad here.
Okay, Miss, I did have a question for D. I didn't need it pulled, but, and I brought this up previously. If we decide to move ahead, like Mr. Ross suggested, and provide these shade structures for each of our sites using COVID money, what would our approval of this now, as it's a PTA funded thing, do? I mean, do we, because if we're purchasing it for all sites, then the PTA could use this money at Orchard either for another one like you suggested or for something else. What would you recommend with regards to that?
I would recommend, I would be surprised if there wasn't a place where they could use an additional one. We'll have to check in with the site to see that. And if not, we could look at being able to fund this with COVID funds as opposed to the PTA funds. Or perhaps we look at, doing something else for that site that also ties into being able to provide, the shaded outdoor eating spaces, which we're targeting, and, using and tying to these COVID funds. So, but like I said, I would be highly surprised because I know that they usually have, several places where they could use this type of shade structure.
Right.
I would
Well,
move
and
forward with it.
I just noticed it said that this is actually the second shade structure in a two-part. I don't know where they're putting them, but
I think,
well,
I think each school needs to be evaluated individually, because we attended Standiford School and they're not even using their outdoor shade structure. They have a very, all these schools, several of these schools had shade structures built. They're the ones that, I won't even comment too much on, but they're the metal roof. They have the thick, I think they're wood, 12 by 12 columns. They're these big shade structures. And when we went to Standiford School, they were not using their shade structure. In fact, you could see that they weren't, because they had all their picnic tables piled up and so forth. But some schools may, like, there's no doubt that UStack needs it. So I think each school should justify that they actually would need it and use it before we buy it for them. I would hate to buy something and it sits abandoned, especially when the one at Standiford is not even being used. So, but I agree with you. If they need extra, they might want to be reimbursed. But as of for these two items, I'll make the motion to approve these two items on the consent.
okay, I got to do one at a time, I think. So let's
Why?
go for, I don't know.
I don't
Because
think you need to.
George, just come on, we're not in that.
I
big a hurry.
can't lump it any other
I'll
ones. How
second,
can I
I'll
lump
second
them?
it.
Well, that's
I'll
because
second
you
it.
stay up till 2 in the morning, Mrs. Lindsay. Some of us actually go to bed at 10
It's
p.m.
All right, here
not
we go.
10 o'clock.
Motion's been
It's not
made.
10 o'clock yet. Hang in there.
Motion's been made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mrs. Lindsay for item 12D. Roll call, please.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Ross,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye, motion carries. Just a little comment. I told George this, but I know that shade structure gets used normally, so I don't know why they're not currently use it, but it's used.
Because we're in COVID and they're
Well,
trying
they're
to
supposed to be
distance and
eating
all that.
outside, but that's not for us to decide. But I think his
That's
idea
right.
is good, that if they want a shade structure, they should defend why they would use it and eat it. So, all right, looking for a motion on 12E.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Ms. Harvey, second by Mr. Raw.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Talcott.
Aye.
Did I say Mr. Law? Miss Harvey, Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board President Miyakawa.
Aye. Are you shaking it up? Just doing all different.
Yeah.
He's jumping his
Every
round
time
on
I
us.
adjust, you guys move on my screen. And I'm like, what the heck?
We're supposed to stay put like Brady Bunch. You don't move. Your birth order.
Nobody's moved on my screen.
Oh, when you're teaching and you have 30 kids, it's crazy. It's like, yeah.
It's not a seating chart on Zoom. They don't.
No, you need to do
No.
that.
It's crazy.
Oh, all right, ladies and gents, we have reached the end of our board meeting. We have our next regular board meeting on May 11th. And then we had scheduled a spring board repeat on May 18th, and I'm gonna throw a kink in it where we won't be in town that day. So if I'm leading that, I'll be leading it from afar in Utah. I'm taking a daughter out. So
Just pick another date, Jen.
So, sorry, Mr. Frederickson. We can bump it. If we move it to the 25th, would that kill you? Or should I?
What?
I'm happy to.
I
lead it from
recommend
afar.
you send out a doodle and people can check the mark boxes. That's a good way to find.
I
any-
remember when we originally picked that date and I thought, ooh, I better check that date. And then I forgot to check that date. So that was my bad. I'm really sorry.
You should be.
Can we not check really quick with everyone right now if we need to do?
Send
No?
out a doodle. It's easier.
No, let's just do it right now.
Okay.
George, just pick your calendar up.
I
Um,
prefer doing the doodle.
what day was it? I've forgotten what day
It was the 18th and I just
18th.
wondered if we could move it to the 25th.
I can do the 25th.
Good.
That's the last week of school.
Oh,
Yeehaw.
is that
Who
why?
was on that last week? There's nothing going on.
Mr.
Kids
Frederickson,
don't-
let's start
they
with
don't do
you. Is
anything
that
that week.
Yes, I can do the 25th.
Okay. Who am I
George can
missing?
George can do the 25th. He's just not wanting
He's
to do
checking
it. He
his
wants to do a
calendar.
doodle. Send him a doodle.
Cindy, can you do the 25th?
Yeah.
Okay, and Holly, you said yes?
I'm good.
Christine, you said yes? Checking? reconfiguring?
I'm not sure. That's a lot of stuff goes on that week. So
Okay, maybe. All right, let's doodle it. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Mr. Frederickson. We'll see what we can.
I mean, I will do everything I can to make it work, but there's a couple things that I can't.
Got it. Okay. Okay, we'll chat and we'll get back to you on that one. All
Well,
right.
it's a regular, isn't it a regular board meeting? No.
No, that's the 11th. All
Okay.
right, thank you everyone very much. Another
Oh,
long.
I have a quick question. I'm assuming that and I have had this on my calendar forever and ever. I'm assuming the retirement party is. Are you all gone?
Virtual. Like last.
No,
You
we're
are?
here.
What-
We're here.
Are we doing the retirement party?
So no, we're not doing the retirement party. We're gonna do our virtual presentation like we did last year with the video tribute. And then the HR department will personally deliver the gifts and treats to the retirees, just as we did last year.
Okay, I have it down for a year, so I wanted to be sure before I deleted it.
It'll be in the
Okay.
May 11th. It'll be in the May 11th board meeting as part of the board meeting.
Don't tell the other four because they left too soon.
They're actually all still on, Mrs. Lindsay.
We're
Oh,
all here. All right, let's end this. Let's wrap this up. People need to get home. Thank you very much. You'll hear from us on those dates. Thank you for all your
Okay,
work.
guys, bye.
Have
Hey,
a great evening, and I call this meeting to a close. Good
Hey, good
night.
night.
Good night.